Castle Howard in North Yorkshire was built over 300 years ago and stands as a legacy to the Howard family who still live there today. Preserving it for the future is a constant challenge, but one that is being met with determination and respect for its rich history. When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock.
I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses.
It's wonderful to welcome you back to the drawing room here at Mapperton and to the second installment of my visit to Castle Howard. Castle Howard has been home to the Howard family since it was built over 300 years ago. Its beautifully theatrical design was the vision of architects John Vanbrugh and Nicholas Hawksmoor at the turn of the 18th century. It wasn't only the house that was center stage, the surrounding landscape took on a leading role too. About a mile from Castle Howard itself stands the mausoleum, designed by architect Nicholas Hawksmoor in the 1720s.
The mausoleum. The mausoleum. It is rather a magnificent building, isn't it? One of the things I love about it is that from a distance away it looks quite a manageable size. The closer you get to it, the more you realise that it's a monster.
That's
sitting on top of the hill.
I mean, it is vast.
But it's also, it's a very beautiful building. It's because Hawksmoor designed the majority of it.
Yes.
Hawksmoor is probably the most underrated architect this country ever produced. I mean, he's started to be appreciated much more now.
Yes, he is.
But you know, this is pure Hawksmoor. I mean, for instance, he spent God knows how long trying to work out whether it should be an arcade, so a series of arches,
yes,
or a colonnade, a series of columns. And he wanted it to be an arcade, but it's too big to have an arcade on it with the right number of arches.
Right.
So he rather sadly decided to make it into a colonnade. I mean, sadly as far as he was concerned. But it has an extraordinary beauty to it.
It certainly does. I mean, it's absolutely vast. But the view, of course, is phenomenal,
yes,
spectacular. I mean,
well, that is the view.
Yes.
And I get that in reverse every morning at breakfast. So every morning I'm looking at the place I'm going to be buried, which I rather like. I really do rather like. It has sort of satisfaction to it.
No, it does. But the history around this was built.
This was built when Carlisle set out to build Castle Howard,
yes,
third of Carlisle. He always intended that it should be as much about the surrounding countryside, the land, the buildings, as about the single building itself. So they represented a collection of buildings, so that it became a sort of thing in a landscape, rather than just a building plonked on a hill.
Right.
And when they got about 2/3 through the building of the house, he said to Vanbrugh and Hawksmoor, right, stop, I want to get on with the outside, because otherwise it'll never happen.
Right.
So Vanbrugh designed the temple,
yes,
Temple of the Four Winds, just past those trees there, and Hawksmoor designed the mausoleum.
And the third Earl built this to show off, of course, his...
Well, the whole thing is showing off.
The whole thing's showing off his power, but he did want to be buried here.
He wanted to be buried here. And you know, I mean, normally you'd say that having a great mausoleum would be the height of arrogance, but I think frankly he deserves it. For creating all that, he's allowed his own memorial. You know, it's pretty incredible. He didn't go into it initially. He wasn't finished by the time he died.
Right.
And he was initially buried in the village of Welburn, which is over there.
Okay.
And then once the mausoleum was finished, he was disinterred and brought up here.
And brought
to
up
be
here.
buried.
Okay, fantastic.
So
Right. And can we go inside?
we can indeed.
Oh, absolutely brilliant.
And we get into real Hawksmoor when we get inside. Do you see here those iron cramps?
Yes,
That's
I
what's
do.
pulling the building apart. When iron gets rusts, it can
Yes.
take up to 7 times the volume of rusty iron, 7 times the volume of ordinary stone. So, I mean, this needs alone about 10 million spending on it. The chap. This is actually a consecrated chapel, but there is no Christian symbolism in it anywhere.
Really?
Which is kind of indicative of the thinking at that time. But it's Hawksmoor at its finest.
Yes.
And, you know, it's full of little details. And most people, if they've been building something like this, there wouldn't have been many people building something like this.
No, of course
but
not.
usually you would have had half columns going up.
Okay.
But Hawksmoor insisted, and Carlyle was happy with it, that there were full columns in recesses. And it just gives that sense of weight rather more.
Yes.
But I mean, it is the most beautiful ceiling with all those different flowers in it.
It's extraordinary. It's just exquisite.
I mean, even though it is this very grand and sort of imposing thing, it does give a sense of calm and
It
peace
does.
just sitting here.
It does. As I just sort of, take my eyes from one spot to the next. There's so much to look at, so much to take in, but you do feel this real sense of peace from within. And the family then is buried here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
there's a couple of generations that haven't been buried here. Rosalind and George, now Countess, are buried up at Naworth.
Okay.
And my grandparents, Geoffrey and Kitty, are buried just in the village graveyard in Cannisthorpe. Which I think probably
Yes.
was because I think he always probably felt a little bit strange about having inherited it. And
Right.
probably thought it'd be a bit grand to put himself in here. By the time we got to my father's generation, he was having none of that. So he's in here, my 2 aunts are in here, and now 2 of my brothers are in here, and I'll be in here.
Yes. Wow. But the upkeep of this, though, Nick, is
This
quite
is
extensive.
I mean, we have a huge conservation deficit. So
Yeah.
what we need to spend on conserving what's here, I mean, the total is about 50 million, but this alone is probably 10 to 15 million. They thought it would be very clever to strengthen it by putting iron cramps between the stones, which is fine when everything's dry, but when iron gets wet and turns to iron oxide, rust, it can occupy up to 7 times the volume, so it just rips the stone apart. And actually, just outside the door here, there's a new bit that had come off.
And it's
that I just
all the way
noticed.
up?
All the way up.
all the way up.
And we don't even know, it's likely that there's a chain of some sort going around the dome, because domes naturally push outwards.
Yes.
And Hawksmoor knew this because he worked with Wren on St Paul's.
Yeah.
And St Paul's has got 2 great chains around it, so it's quite likely that somewhere embedded in the stone up there is a
There's-
chain.
Would you have to look at every single...
We'd have to look at the entire fabric of it. And we can do little bits and pieces of work on it. So we've stopped the damp getting in down below. I'll take you down below in a minute, and you'll see what the effects of the damp were there. And,
Right.
I can point out the negative aspects of it, but the real point is that it is still standing, and
Yeah.
it is one of the most beautiful buildings in England.
It's
Extraordinary.
It is absolutely extraordinary and just wonderful to see it in all its glory. The mausoleum really is the most spectacular building. Rising 90 feet high, it has stood proud in the landscape for nearly 300 years. It has the most peaceful, beautiful atmosphere, especially in the private family crypt. Oh my goodness, it's very atmospheric.
It's atmospheric. It's not scary.
No, it's
I've
not.
never found this crypt
No.
scary.
It's quite light, and as in, what I mean by that is there's not a sort of a heaviness within it.
And if the sun is shining, there's always a shaft of light coming through one of these windows.
Wonderful.
Which is rather lovely. But what there are also these rooms going around, which have each got its lots in them. And there's still lots of room left.
Oh, is there? Okay, well I can see there's one there.
Yeah, that one's empty. That's my brother Henry.
Okay.
That's my aunt Christian.
Right.
My parents are around the corner. My grandparents, I say, are down the cemetery in Countess. My great-grandparents are in Naworth. And then it comes back to greats and all the way back to the third Earl.
All the way back. And can I see the third Earl?
Indeed you can. We'll need to find some additional light to put onto the wall, but I think probably our phones will be enough. Wow. There he is.
There he is.
There he is, the third Earl of Carlisle.
And he was the first one here.
He was the first one here, yeah. It wasn't quite finished, as I said, by the time he died. So he was temporarily put into, which one is that?
Brilliant. So that's the second son.
Yeah, it's the second son, yeah.
Of the third Earl.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
And then we move around, and if you come in here now, you can see what I mean by these little rooms.
No.
It was a square.
Oh my goodness.
But the damp, which we've now arrested, has meant that there's been terrible damage to these. They've started to delaminate, which is slightly scary.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we do know each. I suppose we could.
This is absolutely
recarved them, but
brilliant.
my parents,
Oh, lovely.
father, my mother.
Lovely. Really lovely.
It's a little bit like touring a picture gallery.
It is.
Now, this one is the first completely empty room.
Ah.
And you can see that there are all these spaces still left.
Yes, there are. Well, wonderful. Thank you. As Nick mentioned, the mausoleum is one of the greatest conservation challenges at Castle Howard. You were talking earlier about, as we look at this restoration project. So will this happen, do you think, in your lifetime? Would you like it to
I'm
happen?
determined to get something happening before I put my clogs.
Right.
That needs dealing with as well. Every time I come up here, there's something new. This has come away from the wall.
Yes, because you have that eye that, when you walk into a room, the first thing as a...
You notice change.
Exactly.
You notice change.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, this is exquisite. It's absolutely beautiful. What a real privilege for me to be here.
And of course, the place was chosen very carefully. I think it's the highest hill kind of around.
Right.
So you've got the most amazing views out.
Yeah, amazing 360 views.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. As avid viewers of our YouTube channel are aware, I'm currently engrossed in the fascinating research of my husband's great-grandmother, Alberta Sturgis, an American heiress who, during the Gilded Age, crossed the Atlantic and wed into British aristocracy. She then eventually ascended to the title of the 9th Countess of Sandwich. And over the span of her 46-year marriage from 1905 to 1951, she traversed the seas between England and America aboard majestic cruise liners like the Queen Mary. And in my mind's eye, I envision her donning a dress like the one I'm wearing, perhaps worn during elegant dinners on board. I'm delighted to share that this week's video is sponsored by June's Journey, a captivating and free hidden object mystery game that transports players back to the allure of 1927. Tailored perfectly for enthusiasts of the Roaring '20s, the game unfolds with June Parker embarking on one of those iconic cruise liners, voyaging to New York to unravel a compelling mystery and unveil her family's concealed secrets. Whenever I yearn to disconnect from the demands of the 21st century and immerse myself in the enchanting ambience of the 1920s, I find solace in the company of June as we collaborate to solve intriguing mysteries. Click the link provided in the description down below to download June's journey for free, and maybe consider yourself in a dress akin to the one showcased in the video to truly transport yourself to that bygone era. Now, let's return to the enchanting world of June, the captivating 1920s, and a bit of well-deserved me time. Every historic house faces day-to-day challenges to maintain and preserve these glorious buildings for the future. And Castle Howard is no exception. Restoration projects are always ongoing. I met up with Stephanie Halstead, head of built environment at Castle Howard, to see a project which has presented its own set of challenges.
So this is one of our wall garden gate piers. It's on the Heritage at Risk register,
Right.
As the wall garden as a whole. And unfortunately, this particular pier got hit by a delivery vehicle a couple of years ago now. And what happened was it just clipped the edge of one of the stones, which caused it to rotate and fracture. And so our architect undertook a survey and actually determined that the damage was quite substantial, whilst aesthetically it didn't look like that.
Right.
So we've had to gain listed building consent to fully dismantle the pier and then rebuild it. We found that most of the stones couldn't be reused because they were poor quality, they'd deteriorated in condition quite a bit. Fundamentally, the design of the pier was flawed in how it was constructed,
Right.
so we've had to do some improvements to that. So it's been a very long drawn out process where our masons have had to carefully dismantle stone by stone, record it. There's been a lot of geometry going on back at their yard to work out the correct way to rebuild and form the pier.
Right.
And then they've had to bring all of that stone back, 18 tons worth of stone.
Oh my goodness.
To then rebuild it.
Well, since I'm dressed like this, can we go up and see it?
Absolutely, let's take a look.
Okay, let's go. Wow, that is quite a structure.
I know,
So
isn't
this
it?
had to be completely rebuilt.
Yep, so it's fully dismantled down to the lower courses because the damage was so great, and then it's had to be essentially rebuilt from the ground up. You can see where we've been able to reuse some of the original stones.
Oh, yes.
Unfortunately, there's not that many surviving just because they're deteriorated so much.
So from start to finish, this project, how long has it taken?
So the original damage happened in 2021. We then also had to get listed building consent because it was quite a big intervention to make to
Right.
be using so much new stone. You know, this is one of many piers, and I think this hopefully marks the start of us being able to do something further with the remainder of the wall garden.
Yes.
As you're aware, we have a massive conservation challenge here. So many parts of our estate need our attention, and in a way we were quite fortunate that this incident happened because it's enabled us to provide some focus.
Yes.
And also it's taught us a lot. We now know how the other piers have been constructed, and it means that we will go into any future pier restorations kind of fully informed with a plan in place,
Yes.
knowing how long it's going to take and also how much it's going to cost.
Yes, yes, exactly. And cost is the big one. You know, I think when somebody looks at this, they don't really appreciate how much time, effort, and money has to be spent on a structure like this.
Yeah,
which looks
absolutely.
quite simple to the eye, but so much detail.
Yeah, and it takes up a tiny space. So
That's
you wouldn't
right.
think
Yes,
it was
exactly,
a big project.
exactly.
And I mean, for me as well, it's about keeping the heritage skills alive, because without the craftsmen who can recreate these structures, we're going to be lost in the future.
Yes.
And you know, we're really keen to make sure that we do keep that skill set alive.
Yeah. You know, you've got enormous Castle Howard, vast, but these equally are just as important.
Absolutely.
Just as they're part of the fabric of the entire estate.
They are, and if we don't preserve them, we'll lose them. So it's crucial that we
Yeah.
continue to plough our income from visitors, from our wider estate into these conservation projects.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you, Steph.
No
Wow,
problem.
what a treat to be able to see this. I hope you're going to have some sort of party or something, celebration, right?
I think we need to.
Yeah,
definitely.
you absolutely need to. And there must have been quite a celebration when construction on Castle Howard was finally completed at the beginning of the 19th century. It had taken over 100 years to build. Dr. Christopher Ridgway explained more about Vanbragh's original vision for the building.
The house is begun in 1699 with the east wing and moves in this westerly direction, so from left to right as we're looking at it.
Yep.
East wing, central block, great crowning dome, unique, no private house in England had ever been built with one of those before. 3/4 finished, and suddenly the house doesn't get built anymore, because by 1715 the men were throwing all their energy into designing the landscape around here. So the complementarity of the 18th century house and the 18th century designed landscape, really crucial to understand them together.
Right.
And that means it's not until the 1750s that the west wing is built to a different architectural style.
Oh my.
So the original vision is only partially completed with 2 wings, but they don't match in
But
any
they
way.
don't match. Oh my goodness. And you have to really look at it to see that they don't match, because when you arrive, you
think, yeah.
well, yeah, you
And-
think that this was all built at the
Yeah.
same time.
And there's an engraving showing how it should be, but it doesn't correspond with what you see today. And today it's a hybrid, but I think it's all the more interesting because of that kind of quirkiness. There's only 2 things you need to enjoy Castle Howard. One is an open mind, curiosity. The other thing, open eyes.
Yes.
And then you can enjoy whatever you see.
Exactly. Well, there's lots of visitors
Yeah,
here
here
today.
they come.
And they are definitely enjoying Castle Howard.
There's so much to Castle Howard. I mean, one early visitor in the 18th century described it as not one single place, as 10 different places with the house, the lakes, the gardens,
Yes.
the woodlands. And it is that multiplicity, all from that early period, that makes it so rich and endlessly stimulating. There's an infinity of things to learn here.
Absolutely. And that's what makes these historic houses so special.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with that visitor in the 18th century. There is so much to see at Castle Howard. Jasper Hassel, Estate Chief Executive, is developing new ways of enhancing the visitor experience in the surrounding landscape. We headed out to visit some of the monuments, which, like the mausoleum, were designed by Hawksmoor and Vanbrugh in the 1720s.
I think the focus is always the house and the grounds, and that's the obvious attraction, and we get 250,000 visitors a year that come to see that. But there is so much more outside the house and the grounds, and people sometimes don't realise that. They can see them in the distance, these various monuments that we're going to go and visit, but actually getting up close and personal to them, understanding why they're there, they're visitor attractions in their own right.
Right.
So we're trying to widen the appreciation of why people should come to see the house and the grounds and the surrounding estate. And we're fortunate we have a lot of public rights of way across the estate. We're very open estate in terms of access, so people can go and see these. It's just sort of getting them out there and making them realise they're there.
Right, exactly. So where are we heading to now?
So we're looking at the old parkland, which is the old deer park of the estate, and this is right in front of the house. It would have been surrounded by a 7-mile wall back in the day.
Right.
That doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. So we're going to drive along through the park, and we'll go past these follies on the way, but like the pyramid you can see here on the right hand side.
Yes.
So it would have been inspired by the sort of, the Grand Tour and going through Europe and North Africa and seeing these things and sort of coming back and saying, well, actually I want one of those in my back garden, which effectively this would have been.
Right, which side, Jasper?
Well, yeah.
House,
Which direction?
pyramid.
So the house is here, and that's the south side of the house. So the gardens, you would have walked around, and as you walk up and down the terrace on the south side, these monuments would kind of pop in and out of view in a
Right.
kind of a theatrical way. you know, you sort of lose sight of one and another one emerges behind the trees or, you know, behind the hill. And so what they've done is they've taken natural points in the landscape. They haven't built that hill up. They haven't built the hill up over there. They've taken those natural points and they've put these monuments on them. Interestingly, they are sort of on a radius of the pyramid. And this is a pyramid. It is hollow inside. There's a bust of one of the ancestors inside. It's not open to the public, and that's where we're working on an application which I can talk to you a bit more about. That kind of brings these things to life. So you'll be able to click on the app, and it'll show you what's inside the pyramid, because you can't actually go right up to that and go inside it at the moment, but
Right.
it will allow you to do that virtually from here, and you can walk around it in a sort of augmented reality way. So that's about sort of opening up these places, because you can walk down this road.
Yes.
This is a public right of way, but you might just walk past that and do
Think.
exactly what is that? Why is it there?
So now it's almost like an immersive experience. I'm taking a walk, I see this in the distance, and I think, what the heck is this pyramid
Yeah.
doing? I'm able to look at the app and find out more
I
information.
mean, should we put it on the bonnet of the car?
Yeah.
I'll
my goodness.
I'll see if it can work.
Okay,
I'll get this. I've got a little piece of paper that sort of activates it.
okay, fantastic.
So the idea is this would be like a QR code. This could be anywhere. This
Right.
could be on a little post there.
Exactly.
Or we're actually developing a way that you get within a certain georeference and then it activates. So you kind of have to be within a spot, and then you can
Right, and then
you can see it.
Right.
So so I'd click on my app and I'd open it up. I'd point it. There it is. See?
Oh my
Have you seen
gosh,
it?
there's the pyramid.
It's on the bonnet of the car.
It is on the bonnet of the car, but I can see it very up close and
Yeah.
personal.
Well, you can even see the lichen on the stones.
Yes, you can.
And then if I walk around it, I can see the other side,
Oh my goodness.
and I can go up. I can
Top.
see the top of it, and then we've got a thing. We're going to have a little dropout, and you click it, and it shows you a three-dimensional bust of what's inside,
What's inside.
the statue effectively that's inside. And we've done one of the mausoleum as well. I'll just show you that, just
Okay.
because you've been to there.
Yeah, I've
Again,
So I'll
if
hold
you
that.
hold that, this is our sort of beta testing, so apologies. There it is. See the
there's
mausoleum,
a mausoleum.
on the bonnet of the car,
Oh my goodness.
and again you can kind of go over
Zoom
the top
around.
as you move around.
And then I can hit
Yeah,
information
hit
as well.
information.
So again, another Hawksmoor creation. So
Yeah.
his spectacular mausoleum. And it says in the 1720s, again, it was the third Earl of Carlisle
Yeah.
who was determined to build this. And that's fantastic. So rather than, it's almost like I'm on an immersive experience walk, which is highly educational.
Yeah, and you don't need sort of garish information
No.
boards everywhere.
It's fantastic.
So it gives you maybe a bit of purpose to your amble through the estate.
Great, so where are we off to next?
We're going to go to New River Bridge, which is that bridge down there, and then we'll probably go up to the Temple of the Four Winds, which is a beautiful folly designed by Vanbrugh, and it was sort of a summer house, a place where they would have embarked on their kind of parkland adventures.
Right,
from-
right.
On their horses and things. back in the day.
Fantastic. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
brilliant. Stunning.
Yeah.
I mean, stunning, stunning, stunning. Look at this. Oh, it's so beautiful.
So this is New River,
Right.
because it was a new river. It was designed into the landscape. It cascades down from the lakes in the south side of the house.
Right.
And then it's dammed at various points to create this river-like feature. And then you've got the Temple of the Four Winds, which is
So tell me about that, because I've
Yeah.
passed that. I've seen the mausoleum.
the mausoleum.
Yeah, fantastic. But Temple of Four Winds.
So that's a much more positive place than the mausoleum. That's
Right.
that's probably the location for lots of summer garden parties. It was probably the starting point for lots of adventures in around the estate. You can imagine their horses being brought up here, and then they go off hunting or riding across the estate. It's quite a distance from the main house. It would have been that sort of summer folly, summer
Right.
house,
Summer house, yes. And is it still used today?
Yes,
Is
it
right.
is, yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Special events. So yeah, it is still used. Yeah.
But again, this was built by the third Earl, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yes,
Yeah, and Vanbrugh designed as well. So we'll go up there and
Okay.
take a closer look.
At the Temple of the Four Winds, we carried out another test of the new visitor experience app, which is in development.
So we've come to this viewing point, and there's nothing here, but there is something here,
Right.
digitally.
Yes.
And then we launch the AR, and we hold the phone up, and
Oh my goodness.
so now
yes.
there's an information point there, and I can click on
that.
Click on that.
There we
there
go.
we go. Vanbra's Temple. There we go. And then it gives me some pictures of it in the past.
Yes.
And then I can scroll down, and it gives me the information about it, what it was built for.
And then you can find out so much more information, but also it includes sort of pictures, sort of now and then. So this is fantastic. It's a real immersive experience.
Yeah, it is. It's immersive. It becomes a virtual tour guide. It's on your device.
Wonderful, because I think that it's when you come out onto the wider landscape, having the accessibility here, you might think, ooh, I can't access it. We've just accessed that perfectly. And being able to learn.
Yeah, it's really important. And there's so much learning here, like you said, and it might be about history, it might be about the built environment, heritage, it can be about the natural environment, it can be about farming.
Yes.
So it becomes an educational experience.
Well done. I'm excited to download the app.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jasper.
We've got a cow looking longingly at our car. We should probably
We do.
get back in before it gets licked to death.
Well, yes, I have a fear of cows, Jasper, so I'm a bit nervous.
Well,
At least my door is on this side, the passenger
Yeah,
is on
exactly.
this side.
Exactly. We'll get back in and we'll cruise down
Okay, fantastic.
back over the bridge.
The ongoing work to expand the visitor experience both within the house and across the estate at Castle Howard is so inspiring. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you back here very soon. Bye, everybody.